Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Geektopia, where we talk about all things within the world of fandom. I'm your host, Barry. This is actually my second podcast in quite some time. I'm quickly following this up from the Wonder Woman 84 mini review. Just going to talk about some news that has me pretty excited, but kind of slightly apprehensive at the same time. And that is the head of Warner Brothers, DC, Walter Hamada, recently announced, this was probably about a week ago now, that there were plans to basically have two Batman film franchises running simultaneously, which, needless to say, has never been done before. It's very ambitious, it's quite bold, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, at the moment, the DC cinematic universe hasn't really found any solid footing. I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Batman. Anyone that knows me, Batman is hands down my favourite character in the whole world of fiction. It was really the animated series back in '92 that really got me in love with the character, and I've read a hell of a lot of comic books since. I can't get enough Batman. Okay, I want to see as much Batman as I possibly can, but at the same time, I want good films. I want good films. I don't just want, look, we're going to release this film, we're going to release that film. One step at a time. Let's just, do you know what I mean? Sometimes you're putting too many eggs into one basket. Now, Walt Hamada has actually said that he, as long as the films are good, people are going to be on board with this idea, which I believe in. I think that's true. As long as the content's good, I think people will buy into the idea of two separate film franchises. Now, he actually said that, audiences are clever, people are going to understand that there's two separate Batman, blah, blah, and all this and that. I think he's giving people too much credit sometimes. That's not to sound harsh, but a lot of people I know seem to get quite confused with certain franchises and whatnot. I don't want to get too off the topic, but take 2018's Halloween. A lot of people were confused when that came out. They were like, is this a remake of Halloween? No. It's actually a sequel set 40 years after the original. It just completely omits all of the Halloween sequels in between. It's obviously just using the original film's title, Halloween. Scream 5, which of course has just simply been titled Scream. It's actually the fifth film in the franchise, but they're actually dropping the number. It's actually being called just Scream. Already that seems to have confused people. A lot of people were like, is this a remake? Is this a remake of the 1996 film Scream? No. It's the fifth movie, they're just dropping the title. Even with The Final Destination, which was the fourth film in the franchise, people were like, hang on, it's called The Final Destination. Is this a remake? No. So, in regard to this whole Batman thing, at the end of the day, the character's been around for over 80 years. There's many, many iterations of Batman. Countless writers, many different actors have played Batman. I believe you can do two separate universes. Now, I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but of course Michael Keaton, who is regarded by many fans to still probably be the best big screen Batman we've had, in Batman and Batman Returns, two very good Batman films, is that he is going to return as the Caped Crusader. Now, that I'm a little unsure of, because, the thing is, as much as I'd love to see Keaton back, purely for nostalgic reasons, as I say, 89's Batman is considered by many to be one of the best, if not the best Batman film to date. A lot of Batman fans have a soft spot for Michael Keaton. He's in their heart, so to speak. So I think for the Batman fans, they'd love to see him back as Batman. But clearly, what they'd be going for here is, I've heard rumours that this is going to be kind of a mentoring older Bruce Wayne. So obviously, Michael Keaton, I'm not sure how old he is now. But they'd be kind of veering towards a kind of Batman beyond Bruce Wayne, where he's in a mentoring capacity. Or whether we're going to actually get Keaton back as kind of the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns, an older retired Bruce that comes out of retirement to don the cape and cowl again. It hasn't been established or confirmed as to what kind of role Keaton will actually have in this universe. I don't think it's actually been officially confirmed, but I believe there have been talks of Keaton. Now, obviously we're getting the Flashpoint, the Flash film, which was originally supposed to be out in 2018. Needless to say, it's gone through production hell. It's gone through quite a few directors, and for the fastest man on the earth, he's certainly taken a long time getting here. But I think one of the reasons the Flash film has taken such a long time to get here is because they essentially know with this film there's a lot riding on it. There's a lot resting on this film. This film is going to essentially act as the reset button. The DCEU hasn't quite gone according to plan. As I say, it hasn't really found much solid footing. So they're basically, I think they're going to reboot things with the Flash movie. Now, it has actually been established that Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman will appear in the same film, in the Flash movie. Because obviously with a character like the Flash having the ability to tap into the Speed Force, it makes all things possible. When you've got the Flash there, he's your backup plan. He's the guy that can change everything. Now, had we've got the 2018 film, the Flash film, I believe we would have got a more contained movie. The Flash probably taken on the Rogues, possibly Reverse Flash, but I think the Rogues would have been a likely choice. Captain Cold, Weather Wizard, Heatwave, Mirror Master. But because of what's happened with the massive underperformance of Justice League, I mean, obviously we're going to be getting the Justice League that we should have got back in 2017. We're getting that in March. It's the film that we deserve. It's the film that we should have got. And I am seriously, seriously excited. The 2017 film was a huge disappointment, a massive underperformance at the box office. I think that threw a huge spanner in the works. Is that it wasn't going according to plan. We need to take a step back and change things here. So which I'm all for. Okay, if it doesn't work, just reassess the situation, but don't just rush into it again. Don't just rush into it. And from the sound of things, there's these big plans to release at the moment. Just a little while ago, again, I think it was a week or so, DC announced that they have plans to release 4 movies, theatrical released films each year, and 2 HBO Max exclusive films. That's ambitious. I mean, I love DC. I'd love to see as much DC content as I can get. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I just don't want loads of films churned out for the sake of it. I don't want these films rushed. That's ambitious. I mean, look at the MCU. It's been a huge success, of course. On average, they average 2 films a year. 2008, we had Iron Man, Incredible Hulk. 2010, we had 1 film, Iron Man 2. 2011 had a couple of films. Thor, then Captain America, the First Avenger. 2013 had a couple. Iron Man 3, Thor, The Dark World. You get it. It wasn't really till 2017 where they actually churned 3 films out in 1 year. Now, bearing in mind, that's MCU films. There's also Sony films, and there's also 20th Century Fox Disney Marvel films, which, of course, Disney now own. So you had, like, the Fantastic Fours, the Deadpools, the X-Men's, but 3 MCU films is the most they've ever done. And DC are looking to do 4 plus 2 HBO Max. It has me a little nervous. Excited, but kind of nervous, because I just don't want to see them fail. I want people to be sitting around talking about DC films like they talk about the MCU films, and I find it very frustrating that, there's people out there that, alright, not to sound like an elitist, there's people out there that aren't familiar with the comic books, they don't read comic books, that's fair enough, but they watch the films, and they watch the DC films like, oh, DC's crap, DC's shit, and all this and that, because they're comparing them to the Marvel films. Do you know what I mean? And it does annoy me, because I'm like, there's so many great storylines out there in the comic books, and DC have really achieved great things through animation. They've had some good TV shows, but I think where DC really excels are the comic books over the years and their animated shows and films. And I'd love to see them achieve on the big screen in live action, what they do for animation. I'd love to see them do in live action. Now, the whole idea of this 2 Batman, you've got Robert Pattinson in the Batman, which is obviously coming out in 2022, March. The movie that I'm hands down most excited for. I'm really looking forward to this film. I have got pretty high expectations. based on the fact that I think Robert Pattinson is actually a solid actor, a pretty underrated actor that unfortunately a lot of people just kind of know as the Twilight guy, but he's actually done a lot of good independent stuff since. Matt Reeves, who I think is an efficient director. He did a great job with Dawn of the Apes and War of the Apes. I'm hoping he can do for Batman what he did for the Apes franchise. And also the fact that he clearly seems to have a passion. He seems to have a genuine passion and a lot of knowledge for the character of Batman. So I feel like this film is in good hands. And obviously it's the first film. It's the first film what's planned to be a trilogy. Matt Reeves actually does. I mean, this is, of course, all subject to change. Who knows? If this film doesn't do well, who knows? They might pull the plug on any sequels. But I'm hoping this is a really good film. We get a trilogy and he's going to direct all 3 films, much like Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy. So you've got Pattinson's Batman, but there's going to be a different Batman. Presumably for the larger movies and less confined films, the less grounded movies, I don't know. So, I mean, obviously they're going to recast Ben Affleck, which I still think is a shame. I think Ben Affleck made for a good Batman. Unfortunately, I don't think he had the best material to work with. Batman v Superman, while I liked it, I didn't love it. There were definitely some elements of it that I did appreciate. There were some aspects that I liked, but on a whole, I was disappointed. It was a film that I had seriously high expectations for, and obviously I think we should have had a Batfleck solo film before Batman v Superman. There should have been a more organic build-up to that movie. But anyway, what's done is done. I think it's a real shame that Affleck never got a solo Batman film. Again, I'm really looking forward, though, to seeing how different his character is in the Snyder Cut. Because obviously, the Justice League we got in 2017 had Joss Whedon's fingerprints all over it. That was Joss Whedon's film. I mean, visually speaking and stuff, there was some, Snyderisms and stuff, but it was more of a Joss Whedon movie. The forced humour, it felt like it was a DC film that was kind of struggling with its identity and it wanted to be a Marvel film. It felt like it was trying to be a Marvel movie. And that's courtesy of Joss Whedon. And there were moments in that film where Batman, the stuff that Affleck comes out with, just made me cringe. It just made me, I'm like, there's no way in a million years Batman would ever say that. Seriously. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Snyder's take on this was. Because tonally, of course, Justice League that we got in 2017, tonally, was completely different to BVS. BVS, I know some people criticised it, some people critiqued it for being too bleak, too dark. I was perfectly fine with the tone of that film. To me, the tone of that film is what sets it apart from the vast majority of Marvel films. So, a recasting of Batman, presumably, but there's been talks now of Keaton being the Batman, which I'm conflicted with because I love Batman. Batman Returns, really good sequel. I'd love to see Keaton back, but at the same time, I'm thinking, yeah, this is very much going to kind of be a Frank Miller iteration of the character and stuff. I'd like to see a younger Batman. I mean, I thought The Dark Knight Returns, it's one of the best Batman graphic novels ever done. I love the whole idea of, an older, more world-weary Bruce coming out of retirement and becoming Batman again. I'm perfectly fine with that idea, but at the same time, I'm kind of feeling, what capacity is Keaton going to be as Batman in these films? Is it purely a mentor for Nightwing, for Batgirl, which are obviously all rumoured for? We were going to get a Nightwing film a little while back. That got cancelled. The Batgirl film as well, which was going to get cancelled, obviously all got cancelled. But there's now been rumours that there could possibly be a Batgirl film on HBO Max, but we'll see. Again, Batgirl, I think, is a great character. She's not just some Batman ripoff. She's a great character in her own right, and she's certainly worthy of having her own film. But we'll have to wait and see, because at the moment nothing's really been confirmed. But I'm not completely against the idea of having two Batmen, because I'm a Batman fan. I want to get as much Batman as I can, but I'm worried that these films are just going to be churned out, rushed. I've got no problems. To me, Batman's at his best when he's more in that more grounded universe. For me personally, I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Batman in the Justice League. Batman's a core, pivotal member of that team. But to me, my favourite parts of Batman, my favourite aspects, is when he's actually in Gotham City, taking on the likes of the Penguin, the Riddler, the Joker, the Scarecrow, all them villains. I mean, I'm a little conflicted. Because it kind of feels like, I remember just a few years back, it was like every other week there was like a new DC film announced. There was a Deathstroke film. I'd love to see Deathstroke on the big screen. Of course, I think the post-credit scene in 2017's Justice League was probably better than the film itself. Apparently we are getting a bigger glimpse, a bigger look at Deathstroke in the Snyder Cut, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I don't actually know if we're going to see any action scenes involving him. I'm not sure. But it was like a DC film announced every other week. Plastic Man, Deathstroke, Lobo, the intergalactic bounty hunter, who I think is a great anti-hero in DC. So it looks like they're going along that plan. At least that's the plan. They're going to be churning out a lot of DC films each year. So I don't know. I'm worried but excited at the same time. I'm happy with just 2 films a year, as long as they're good. I'd rather take 2 good films than 3 bad with 1 good. Because I really feel like the more bad films you churn out, the more it tarnishes the DC brand. But I mean, it doesn't affect me in the sense of, because I still read the comic books, etc. It doesn't. I'm always going to love DC no matter what. I think if you love something, if you support a football team, for instance, and your team's doing really bad, they're losing week in, week out, and you get angry, you get frustrated, upset, maybe, etc. But you don't stop loving them. You don't stop supporting them, and that's what support is. That's what being a fan is all about. You want to see the thing that you love achieve the best it can. Do you know what I mean? And that's exactly how I feel with DC. They could churn out bad film after bad film. I'm still going to love DC because I know if it had the right hands and the right leadership, I know what it could accomplish. But anyway. So yeah, I think that's enough on the subject, really. As I say, excited, apprehensive at the same time. I'm just wondering what capacity Keaton would be in as Batman. I would love to see him as Batman again. I just don't know, due to Keaton's age, I don't know how many Batman films in an action capacity he could actually pull off. But we'll see. When the Flash film gets here, when it finally gets here, eventually we'll see. We'll have a better look at what's actually going to happen concerning the DC universe, because there is a lot riding on that movie. And I think the idea of making a Flashpoint film is actually a pretty bad decision. I think Flashpoint is way too big of a storyline to be tackling so soon into a franchise. Don't get me wrong, if done right, many films down the line, 10 movies maybe, 10 to 15 films into a franchise's timeline, yeah. But to have a Flashpoint as the Flash's solo debut film, to me, is a really big mistake. It's a huge storyline. You've really got to cement the actors in the roles first. So these actors are established in the roles they're playing, and what Flashpoint does is essentially puts a twist on them characters. So, yeah. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thanks to everyone that listened, and I'll be back again soon. Take care.